out there, and welcome back to 5 Action News at 5's Talking of the Times, the only show where we talk about the old days and you never truly feel older. I'm your host, Flannery Machinery. Today we will be talking about the Industrial Revolution, where people began to make major changes on how they produce their goods, and they soon realized how much their hands were killing them. We will now go to Professor Noah, who definitely knows it. That's a new joke. He is here to tell us today more about exactly what people began to do during this time. Why don't you tell us, Professor?
Thanks for having me, Flannery. It's great to be here. What did people do during the Revolution? Well, I'll tell you, because I know. It all started in Europe, mostly Great Britain. Wealthy landowners bought farms, and they began to make major changes to the way they do agriculture. First, they came up with inventions like the seed drill, and began to use crop rotation. That's when factories began to grow and large cities began to get built. Excuse me. Many were crowded with people looking for jobs. The goods that they made were produced faster and more proficient, using natural resources to help them out. That was a good thing. More and more inventions were being formed.
That certainly is a lot of information, Professor. How would you describe this time period?
Well, there was good and there was bad. The good part is the growth of goods and productions. Economies grew tremendously. The terrible part, if you ask me personally, is how people lived during these times. Imagine living in a crowded city, barely enough room to walk or rest, streets, skies, and the water filthy and unsanitary. I'd not last a day if I was put in those conditions.
I agree with you, Professor. I'm a germophobic, so I would just die right there on the spot. But that is exactly what we'll be talking about today. What was life like for people in these industrial cities? How bad was the sanitation? How hard did people have to work? We have 3 other guests here with us today that will be talking about their personal experiences in these cities. They will tell us everything that we are dying to know. For now, thank you for coming, Professor Couto.
That's know it. Out of here. Get in that cafe.
The restaurant's down on the street to your left. They're usually $3.99. Well, okay then. The first person to be interviewed is a city planner. Hello there, Miss City Planner. I'm Flannery. How are you doing today?
I am fabulous, thank you. How are you?
All right. But do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Ask for it.
Good. All right. First question. Where do you live? Or, better yet, what was your area like?
Well, I'm a very rich person. Over the past couple of years, my business has been booming. I live right outside the city. The city is a disgusting place, filled with filth and disease. I don't even allow my children there.
Well, that sounds fancy. Not to mention expensive. How do you live on a daily basis? What's your life like?
Oh, it's absolute luxury compared to those who actually live in the city. I don't work that hard for the money I get, and I get a lot of it. Naturally, my home is of simple elegance, and I wouldn't expect anything less. I get my weekends off and regular vacations. Like I said before, I live in luxury, even though almost everyone who used to live like me don't anymore. I feed with their families at market, so we're at public worship. These houses were now a massive filth and misery.
Alright. I mean, I don't mean to be intrusive, but I have another question. Why on earth did you and your colleagues build the city this way? I mean, it's awfully crowded and really, really dangerous. What if a fire were to break out? Wouldn't all the houses just burn down like candles?
You worry too much. You could get migraines doing that. Besides, it's cheaper to put buildings closer together than expanding the city itself. That in return saves me money, which is a wonderful thing. Also, if a fire did catch, people would be smart enough to flee, wouldn't they? If not, then they will meet their demise, I suppose. It doesn't bother me in the least.
Yikes. Well, last of all, how clean is the city?
Well, it's not. The factories, they pour all their extra dye and, building stuff into the river. And the people pour their waste into the river. Might I add, these people drink out of that river. It's not clean. The city is not clean.
Well, that is it. Thank you very much for your time.
Anything for the press.
Show off. Anyway, the second person to be interviewed is a factory worker. Good day, Mr. Factory Worker. Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Alright, first off, describe the city to me. What is it like to live there?
Well, let's start with, it's pretty nice if you like tight spaces. Everything is so squished, one could get very claustrophobic if they spent too much time in there. It is also absurdly filthy there. I should know that I live right in the middle of this.
Ugh, that sounds unquestionably revolting. What was your home like?
I would not call it a home. I would not call it a home, but I call it a closet. My tenant is very insignificant, and I share it with my entire family, and there is no ventilation in the room either, so the air is always murky and hard to breathe in.
Wow, that sounds, charming. Oh yeah, why do you live in such a horrible sounding place?
Well, it's the money. I really don't have the money, and I don't have enough to buy any big more rent than that. Along with the price of food and clothing, a house any larger than that I currently rent would be out of question. And it's fair to say that the Industrial Revolution has a wide variety of victims, and I'm included in that as well.
Alright, last question. What kind of diseases do you encounter every day?
Well, it's pretty gross. Some of the diseases include chlorea and typhoid, and also dysentery from all the freaking sewage on the ground and in the water. All of them wreak havoc and the intestines and show no mercy.
Well, thank you very much for your time. That's all.
Thank you for spreading the word. And by the way, I got fired from my job coming to this place.
Oh my goodness. Well, you can just let yourself out now.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Yes! Oh, okay. Okay, I have to take a shower after this. Okay. Get it together, Flannery. Just keep calm. You're just being around disease infected people. It's not like you're gonna get cold or possibly die or anything. Okay. It's alright. You can sanitize after this. Moving on. Our last interview is, it doesn't say. Okay. Hello, young one. My name is Flannery. How are you today?
I'm well. I get stuff for working in a factory for 12 hours before this. I began working in the mill at Bradford when I was 9 years old. We began working at 6 in the morning and worked until 9 at night. When business was brisk, we would work until 5 and then go until 10 in the evening.
Yikes! That stinks. Oh, I completely forgot. What's your name, child?
Oh, my name is Sally.
Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions?
What kind of questions are there?
Smarty pants. Well, I'll just go ahead and ask anyway. What was the city like?
Oh gosh, don't even get me started on it. It's so overcrowded that I can hardly breathe in it. And it's also pretty gross, you know? Like, there's whole waste everywhere you step thing, and it's really not appetizing.
Okay. What is your house like? Just please answer the question, young lady.
Hey, I live in a tiny cubicle of an apartment with no windows, if you want to know.
Alright, next question. Why do you live there?
So I don't get shipped off to a courthouse. Duh.
Well, I can forget about that. I can just ask you another question. What do you think this city was like? I mean, it can't be all that bad, right?
Oh, it's pretty bad. I have no education, nothing to do other than work at factories all day. It's also pretty gross there. My friends and I get sick all the time due to not having anything sort of. Probably because we started today walking through all the filthy streets to go to a crowded factory, to go home to a stagnant home where we don't get enough sunlight.
And be just curious, that sickness you mentioned, what's that about?
Oh, it's just gross, okay? See, just a couple of weeks ago my dad had this awful tummy ache.
Well, that's all for now. Thank you very much, young lady. You can go on. Go home. Go on, thank you. Thank you for your time. Well, that's it for today, folks. Thank you for listening to Talking of the Times, and I hope you enjoyed our program. I better be getting a lot of money for this.